Let's see if this works any better. Let's update here. And we'll see if this stabilizes at all. So where was I? I was kind of filling in some volume here. Alright. Bring this up to here. Back down. Fill in a little bit more of this anatomy here. Just gonna build up this volume just a bit more so he's got a bit of structure here. Because there's even just hinting at it a little bit in here, I think that's gonna give me something visual to work with, you know. Knock in a little bit of shape for the collarbone area. Hopefully things are starting to stabilize a little out there. Alright, yeah, excellent. So sorry about that. Looks like it was something on my end. I gave my my network connection a bit of a restart there. Everything seems to be going a little bit better. Awesome. Alright. So, where was I? I was just gonna... a little bit of shapes over here. Pull that volume out. Alright. Cool. Well, hopefully things have kind of stabilized for good here. Yeah, I guess I'm just, like I said, blocking in some anatomy, going through my process here. Fill in some of the oblique here. Trying to sort of soften out a little bit more of the anatomy. Build this up a little bit so it separates and creates that line, and then start getting a little bit of that bony transition blocked in. Bit of volume from this muscle here to consider as well. So we kind of get a bit of separation in there. Nothing too strong, right? I'm not going for something that's really muscular, so I just want to kind of block this in gently through here. Build out towards that bone there. Smooth that back a little bit. Clean up that shape a bit, hopefully. There we go. Awesome. Alright. Alright. That in there. I think I'm gonna maybe push the rib cage out a little bit. I might like the standard brush a little bit more for these bony shapes. Find they do a bit of a nicer job with that. Oh, this is actually coming out a little spotted. I think I might want to go in and check my lazy mouse settings. Like bringing that lazy step down a little bit. Let's do like a 0.1. See if that cleans up the brush stroke a little bit. This always makes them a little stronger in the process, I find. I'm just going with a smaller focal shift and carve in a little bit of space under here. Separating that abdomen. Got a little bit of the serratus kind of overlapping in here. Just cover that with a little bit of shape there. Right, and that can roll right into the volumes for the bones of the rib cage. Get a little bit of that standard brush back in there, maybe brush in just a little bit of this one. So if we got this kind of coming in through here, get sort of this line and then this arc. I just want to get that in there and then maybe block in a little of this bone. Get those sound effects in there, just brush that in, yeah. It's okay to be happy about the work that you do, right? I'm just not thinking that this is anything amazing, but you know, you gotta compliment yourself after you get some good brush strokes in, right? Get that smoothed out. Keep the attitude highs. There we go. Just kind of reinforce that shape a little. Maybe I get a little bit more depth to it through here. Maybe I'll even nudge that with the move tool a little bit after. I think I'm going to cut back in here though. Why not indeed? Alright, clay build up. Let's go back in with that and just layer in a little bit of separation for the abs here. Just want to kind of build up a bit of volume through here. I'm working off of some reference. Compliments definitely do add balance. I'm always trying to be at least a little happy with the choices I make here and feel things progressing. I gotta say that's one of the things that kind of draws me into sculpting though too, right? You get you get to start to see results fairly quickly. You don't have to wait a lot for things in the 3D world. Sometimes you can spend a lot of time waiting, so it's definitely nice to be able to just sit back and start to see those shapes just fall into place. This is going to kind of expand out a little bit through here. Just sort of some of those forms underneath the lat. And we're going to hit these volumes in here a little bit. I already got the shape of the trapezius in here. Sorry, the tricep I'm talking about. Just soften out some of the sharpness in the musculature. Bring this volume out a little bit. Let's get this down a bit more through here. I wonder if classical sculptors use Zbrush now and 3D print small maquettes as studies for regular. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some that are out there doing that. Yeah, I mean I don't think I know of any off the top of my head, but I mean there's a lot of people getting into Zbrush and doing some cool stuff with 3D printing. We've had at least one student go off to do just that. I think he ended up doing Warhammer stuff, ZBrushing and building out Warhammer characters. He wasn't a traditional sculptor in that sense, was fresh out of school, but man, he had an eye. Some of his drawings were just insane, and I think that's kind of what you'll see, right? It's just a lot of these, the artists, whatever medium they pick up, if they end up at ZBrush at some point, right, they're going to be, interested in printing what they make, I think that's just a great way to kind of visualize your work, right? But yeah, in terms of like classical sculptors, I can see it being a great way to even just visualize what you're doing, right? Like you said, before you kind of go and make a bronze or stone or whatever you do these days with that stuff. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I do know we had a student a little while, well, not a little while back, a long while back, actually, 4 or 5 years, and he was actually a sculptor. He had done work for a cemetery work or something. He had done sculpts for I guess not tombstones, but whatever they would be that would require more of a sculpture, right? So a lot of that sort of stuff, though. And he was actually learning 3D specifically to take those skills back into his industry, right? So that he could start doing this stuff in 3D first. Now I realize that's not quite the same as sort of the more artistic level of I guess, you know, the artists like Richard David Richardson? No, I can't remember his name. I think it was Richard McDonald, I think is who I'm thinking of. Yeah, it's I wouldn't be surprised if it's making its way out there, and I do know it's being used in film. Our classical sculpting instructor was actually learning some Zbrush specifically to do Zbrush sculpts for film production. A lot of the not the classical films, but I mean like the full CG films, like the Pixar type stuff. I wouldn't say, well, Pixar probably does it as well, but I guess I'm thinking more Escape from Planet Earth and things like that, and, you know, the 3D film production stuff. Anyway, they would do that sort of thing. They'd have physical prints done up of the models as well, so that they could have them for the artists to study. Nope, sounds like my phone's going off, sorry. Never get this thing to turn off. There we go. Nope, that didn't work. Nope. Get it. Yep. Alright. My girlfriend's gonna be running late at work, so that's what that call was about anyway. So yeah, that's I think it's making its way out into the industry, into the industries that it's useful for anyway. I mean, you know, I really look forward to doing stuff in print. I think that's just going to be fantastic. I can't afford one at the moment, but when I feel like I can, I'm definitely gonna, you know, really, you know, I'll probably have to spend some time really looking into it, but I think I definitely want to get one at some point. Hello. Not much is going on here, Stefan. But I am doing some sculpting, blocking out some anatomy, and just chatting away. How are you? What is going on? Bring this down a little bit. I think I got that rib spacing a little far apart here. There we go. Standard brush. I want to just hint a little bit more at some of these shapes here. It's a personal project. I guess you know, I work at a film school, and I don't get a lot of time to work on my own stuff, so I'm using this as an opportunity to kind of get some personal work done, and you know, maybe I hope to use this with some of my coursework at the school I teach at as well, but that's not kind of the main goal, other than really trying to finish something of my own and kind of try out this whole streaming thing too, right? It's kind of just a part of that as well. Gotta clean up this armpit region here as well. Notch that up a little higher. Yeah, this is, I guess this is kind of, give you a bit of a look at the whole thing here for a second. Throw on all the layers and everything. I've just been kind of blocking this guy out for the last little while. And, yeah, that's what I'm sharing with y'all out here. So, welcome, welcome. I'll be exploring some of the anatomy today, like I said, and just kind of going through blocking some of the body stuff out. Trying to do sort of a skin level sculpt and working off some reference. He's got a lot of little layers here. Let me throw the coat off for a sec first, and then I'll get back to what I was doing. Right, so he's got sort of this armor plating on the back, and some other stuff sort of hidden in the vests and the layers on his coat as well, but sort of a detective style, well, I guess private investigator style character, but modern, or sort of sci-fi-ish. Well, hopefully that won't totally tear my stream down. That always seems to happen. Oh well. Fill out a little bit more of this muscle volume in here. This is feeling a little low. Put that out like that. Tuck in there. Yeah, not a creepy naked old man. Yeah, is hopefully gonna look less and less creepy as things go on, but yeah. Just playing around with a lot of the face craziness. Did you do any sculpting yourself? Bicep in place. I'm really, I feel like I'm like slacking on these, on this torso here. Got a little bit of that volume in there. No, sorry, I didn't mean to. I hope I didn't make it sound like I felt you were being rude or anything. Not at all, no. I did not take it that way at all. Sometimes I can't see that. Is it digging in or sticking out? There we go. That might help a little bit with some of that form. Well, you know, it's one of those things that the more you keep at it, the better you're gonna get. That's for sure. How long you been doing it for? I need to kind of block in some of this serratus stuff here a little bit, just sort of start hinting at some of the anatomy. Block in a little muscle here, so kind of build up a little bit of shape down that way. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I should sort of pick up bits of the rib cage and the musculature through here, maybe fill out a bit of that volume there as well. There we go. Got a little bit of that volume in, maybe block in a little bit of another one in here. Gotta be careful with the abs, you know, you don't wanna, I don't wanna block in too much shape, because I know I'm gonna have to go in and build a lot of asymmetry into them later. Especially if they become even like a little visible, right? You're gonna, if you start to see them on that surface, it's always a bit of a challenge to start making that feel more natural again. Don't want to get that symmetry blocked in too hard. Alright, what else we got here? Just a little bit of line there. Gotta get this in. Gotta get that belly button in there. Feels low. I'm gonna block that in a little higher up. He's got a long torso, but hour in total. Alright, cool. Yeah, it's a good start point. Blender, eh? Nice. Nice. Oh, hello, Mr. Bacon. Alright, I gotta clean up this line here. This is gonna kind of blend right into that last abdominal sort of volume there. I'll probably tuck back in a little bit more down here. I'm just gonna kind of block in a little bit of that. Just build some volume up for now. There we go. Back up the body. Let's move on. Zbrush is the power beast. Yes, it's definitely a pretty exciting tool to be using. Not much out there that does what it does. Not to say that there isn't competition, but it's good at what it does, that's all. Why are there any ants in the pants? No, no. That would be a different character altogether, I think. Soften that back down with the smooth brush again. Whoa, I keep doing that. Every time I zoom out, I catch that arm. Let's get the move brush back in here and pick up this hip bone a little bit more. Check my 3/4. I like to spend a lot of time when I'm blocking looking at the 3/4 views. A lot of people seem to underestimate it. I find it's just really helps kind of find the obvious stuff that you can't see from those side views, you know. And I wouldn't even thought to really look at it from, well, I should have, but wasn't really thinking to look at it from this angle either. But the instant I caught that 3/4, man, all you can do is start to see it. Well, maybe not immediately, but with practice, stuff just starts to stand out. A little bit of the shoulder back in there. Whoops. Okay, good. Push that up a little bit. There we go. Square that back a little bit more. There we go. Use that Alt key to pull that volume back out. That's a little bit better. Now, what was I up to? I think I was just trying to get this angle to look a bit better. I think this is where I need to kind of widen things out a little bit more. It's a bit of a depressing bum, eh? I'll have to tackle that next. I haven't spent a lot of time back there yet. Can't have a depressing bum. He's got to have that tight booty. Let's see. I think I'm gonna build a little bit of that stomach out there. Bring that up a little bit more. Just round this out. Anatomy can be quite the beast. It's a rewarding one to learn, though. At least I've found. It's one of the... I mean, you know, with anything that you sculpt, really, the more you know your subject matter, the better your results will typically be, right? So, you know, I definitely found when I started really digging more into the anatomy side of things, the work, the quality that I was able to produce, and the speed at which it would come together seemed to just increase so much. So, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily everyone has to tackle anatomy, right? But just that general idea of kind of you know, really understanding what it is that you are building, right? I find that's what's really valuable, right? That's the thing to watch for, right? What sort of information can you learn about whatever it is that you love to sculpt, and, you know, learn the anatomy of that, so to speak. I feel like this is just a little off to me. I gotta move this around here. I'm gonna nudge this whole oblique at a bit more of an angle. I think I like that. That way that can sit out. This can tuck in. Out. Straighten that line out. And that. Yeah, definitely for character work, right? It's gonna be so useful. But yeah, for other things, I would say you don't need to worry so much about it. And, you know, as fun as characters are, there's a lot of other stuff out there to do, right? There's a lot of cool things out there that people could be building. Trust me, they know that shit just as well too. You know, you hear stories about people that get into specific types of assets, like vehicle modelers. Man, some of those guys know their car mechanics, right? They know their engines, or their, you know, they'll know different vehicles down to the last details. It can be pretty intense, I imagine. Back a little bit, make the butt a little happier here. Spend some time back here. Yeah. A little bit more. And that little fat pad under the leg, the top edge here. The volume and muscle that kind of flows into the butt, and then butt cheeks. Fill that back out. I'm glad you're having fun. This guy will be having a shit ton of fun too, now that he'll be able to shit. Well, I mean, you know, it's still a digital image. Yeah, the amount of progress that you can kind of see people go through is definitely a good benefit here. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think art's kind of like that. A lot of people don't realize how quick you can kind of get into it if you just kind of sit down and take the time to do it and learn it, right? I remember, you know, one of the original ways that I learned to do sort of traditional art. I learned by doing the book series, or I guess it wasn't a book series, it was just sort of a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And it's a fairly well-known book for learning to do sort of portrait art. And the author, I can't speak to the specifics of the training process that she goes through, but she claims that in her seminars, she's actually able to teach students how to go from like drawing really terrible sort of first-time portraits to doing pretty decent likenesses. And I mean, this is a lot of sort of, you know, you're referencing yourself sort of stuff for subjects that are directly in front of you, so it's a little bit different than sort of doing celebrity likenesses in 3D and so on, but she's able to kind of bring their skill sets up to a pretty good level in a week, apparently, using the different exercises in this book that she wrote. And it's just kind of interesting to see that kind of work out so well for other disciplines as well, or for other sort of artistic type spaces too, right? Or I guess not spaces, but skill sets, mediums, whatever, right? You know, Zbrush is definitely one of those tools that works in very much the same way, tackles the very sort of same aspects of how you use your head, and yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, sorry, no genitalia on the Twitch, but it's still funny. I do generally recommend. Well, I don't recommend it, but I generally tell my students not to shy away from it. It's an anatomical detail that some artists do respect that you add. I actually saw well, I guess not saw, I heard that one of my students had gotten a job, not perhaps directly as a result of modeling the genitalia on his creature that he had built, but apparently that was one of the comments that he had gotten from the artist that saw his work when he had gotten there. So I'm sure it was sort of, I'm sure it wasn't entirely the reason for him getting hired, but they said that was one of the reasons, right? Because he had modeled the dog's balls. It was actually quite the process to find the reference for that. Apparently, well, not apparently, I was there. We walked around the beach and asked owners if they'd let us take photos of their dogs. It was very, very awkward. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, I guess, for 3D, for the 3D. But it was really awkward, seriously. It's not something I'd want to do again. It didn't really work out too well either. We found a little bit of reference, but most people, yeah, most dogs' balls aren't that common. There were not a lot of dogs that we could use for reference. Yeah, I suppose it can be to draw dicks. Yeah, yeah. go back and reapproach some of that. It's not really sitting quite the way I want it to, but I think I'm just gonna kind of fill in a little bit more of this structure here, and then maybe tackle a little bit more of the surrounding area. Yeah, I bet they do use Zbrush for porn. I don't know any of my students have gone on to do any of that, but it's entirely possible. Entirely possible. I'm liking that separation. Just leave that out for now. It's getting almost a little too lean. Well, I'm going to fill out a little bit more of the leg here. Still got to do these hands. Yeah. Legs are a little thin here. I'm gonna fill these out a little bit more. Get some volume in here. I should have my anatomy book. I'm mostly just staring at reference at the moment, but I should probably be trying to use this as a opportunity for going through some of my. I'm glad you think so. I'm glad he's not looking too creepy anymore. Cheers. But yeah, I gotta should have my anatomy book out. I don't really have it at the moment, but it's always a good opportunity to kind of go through and review my anatomy to block some of this stuff out a little bit better. But I'll go off the reference for now, since I'm doing skin level stuff anyway. Oh yeah, these feet. Hey, these feet are pretty epic. Come on, they've got little nubbin feet here going. You know, you gotta start with something. These are just beautiful little simple shapes with no real structure at all. But look at that! So much potential, right? That's the thing when you see the ridiculousness of like all this early work, right? All you gotta think is the potential. What could it be? Well, it could be anything. It could be a foot. I don't know. Trim some of this back a little bit here, round that leg out a little bit more. Just gotta round these shapes out. There we go. Side. One streamer I know uses iOS apps for anatomy and posing. Yeah, I've heard about a few of those apps actually. I think a few students have mentioned them before. They do seem pretty nice. I gotta say, I like my my Human Anatomy for Artists book though. It's a bit of a beast, though. It's definitely a big hardback, or hardcover anatomy book that can be a little, well, there's just a lot to go through, I guess, really there. But it's thorough, and it does a great job at kind of illustrating all the essentials. It's one of the few anatomy books I really liked. Dog's dinner. Oh, those little feet. It actually does, actually, yeah, I can kind of see that. The weird sort of like the pebbly stuff, the sort of meaty, oh, what is it? I can't even think of it. Those little... Anyway, I know what you're talking about. Like flippers. Yes. Let's tweak some proportions out here. A little bit more in here. Widen these legs out on the inside a little bit more. Gotta be careful. I got all those other layers of clothing. This is all probably crashing through all of that. Oh well. A little bit more volume down here. Actually, you know what? I think I kind of just smooth that for now. This volume feels like it's in a little bit of an odd spot. Yeah, I know the chest is pretty flat. I don't want to make him too bulky. I might round it out a little bit more, fill it out, but I'm using a really skinny guy for referencing as well, and I'll probably have to revise a lot of the anatomy in here once I get the topo in here. I usually don't like to clean up or build out like bone layers and that sort of anatomy structure too thoroughly early on, because once I get topology it really makes it a lot easier to do some of that. So it's something that I'm looking forward to, but it can be a little bit difficult to kind of ignore it sometimes as well. But yeah, a little bit of the reasoning behind the approach, I guess, here. I'm gonna fill in a little bit of this muscle volume here. That'll help a little bit with that. I don't know how he can have a bum like that and have a super thin chest. He just works the glutes. He does a lot of squats, and not a lot of push-ups, I guess. I think that's the excuse that I'm going to go with anyway. Yeah, we'll stick with that for now. I could always like widen the shoulders out. No, I think actually it starts to look a little weird like that. Do I have to bring this out a little bit more? This is... There we go. Widen this leg out bit by bit. Probably ruining the pants. Oh, actually, you know what? It might be thin enough to fit in the pants still. A little bit more of that. Let's just bring this in a little higher up. There we go. That's better. That long, lean, sort of outer calf muscle. I think that's gonna have to do for now. The knee's a little on the low side. It still feels big. love working with that low fall off, or I guess low focal shift, or I guess it's a high focal shift. I always say low focal shift, I mean high focal shift brush. It makes a nice little nudging tool. Side look, tuck that in a little bit more. Round this out a little bit. Always find it useful to make sure you look at the model from as many angles as you can kind of get your eyes on, you know, and really, you know, within what you can interpret, of course. I mean, obviously, you know, if I can't visualize what the shape should probably look like, it's not really going to help me to go looking at it from like odd, sort of tilted, twisted angles or anything like that. But you know, a lot of these shapes you kind of can spot by looking at the reference or the way the light hits a surface, or just taking advantage of that and trying to read it as best you can. Bring this out just a little bit and get a little bit more depth in here in the middle of the chest as well. I think I'm gonna spend some time on the hands here. Maybe I'll tweak the forearm volume a little bit. Let's see, fill this in with some more volume here. Need like probably just a little bit more depth here, so I'm just going to kind of fill that out against the bone line here. I'm just going to get that line to kind of come out. So this way I can kind of keep it a little softer to the rest of the volume and still build out that width from the side. I'm just going to brush over that. I want to kind of maintain that drop between the wrist and the hand, so I want to kind of keep this all kind of flowing through this line towards the back of the hand. Just going to kind of chop the bottom there. That's about where I want that. Yeah, somewhere around here. Bring that in a little bit. There we go. Fill forward a little here too. There we go. Yeah. You understand? I'm trying to help, that's all. But you must cooperate. There we go. Just carve some of this shape in here a little bit. Get that upward angle on the elbow going. down. Here's my Dynamesh settings. I just want to bring that resolution up a little bit more. I think I'm going to go to 88. Oops, hopefully help me get a little bit more out of that geo as I approach the hand. Build up the bony anchors on either side of the hand here. Now, whenever I approach an enemy, I talked a little bit about this when I was blocking as well. I like to kind of just make sure that I've got a good amount of bone structure to anchor any anatomy that I lay down to, right? So as long as I can see sort of where the wrist sits, where that top bone structure here sits, right? If I can kind of hint at those, then I can kind of anchor any anatomy that I sculpt in, right? Like, so the muscle in the back of the thumb will kind of taper in towards that line. The forearm muscles all kind of wrap into that area, right? So the outside of the arm goes towards the thumb, right? A lot of people struggle with these sort of forearm shapes, and I know I did, right? I still do, right? It's still one of those areas where I really like to have some reference handy, but it's nice to just kind of know where it attaches so you can run that through. And of course, this is the pinky side bone right off the elbow, runs right through. So I can kind of line up a lot of my anatomy that way. Just going to build this in a little bit and let that kind of go in through that way. There we go. Smooth that as it goes into the middle of the arm. Oops. That's better. How does it look from this angle? A little narrow. Nudge this back a little bit. Bring that elbow up a little bit higher. Maybe a little bit lower. Maybe drag that tricep down as well, just to balance that extra length. Alright, tuck that in there a little bit. Okay. So hand. Lock a little bit of this volume out here. I like to build my hands in sort of a relaxed position, but it makes it, it can make it pretty difficult to work on them sometimes because of the way they sit. It's not something that I consider lightly, but it's, I understand. I would understand if people didn't like this sort of approach for this exact reason, right? You end up in these sort of really strange angles, blocking stuff out. But I gotta say, you know, it's nice to get a result that feels natural, right? I find a lot of time when you block in more rigid positions, it can really make the model feel stiff, you know, and make it feel rigid. And you know, I think you can kind of sculpt that into any position too. Maybe even the model that I've got right now is a little stiff, but I find, you know, you really want to aim to build some character into your characters, and this is just you know, one of those ways that I kind of approach that, I guess. You know, just build with a little bit of build things with a little bit of a bend to them, put some character into them while you're at it. You know, just block out some shapes and take the time to just do it, you know. Don't worry about the extra time it takes. If you, at least if, you know, if I was on a production, I might even start with a base mesh or something more clearly built out too. So I mean more for, you know, for your personal work, for your practice, for training yourself. be better and faster. Be able to block these things in and hit those core shapes, and before you know it, you got a model. And I'm rambling, but I'm enjoying it, damn it. So here we are, listening to some music, sculpting some characters out. Can't complain. I got this coffee over here, barely touched, man. Oh, it's starting to get a little less than warm. Oh well. Good thing I make it pretty hot, I guess. It's not true, I water it down afterwards. It's only partly hot. Oh well, now it's getting colder. So be it. Tendons running over the hand here. Add a little bit more of that thumb structure. It's hard to use the keys on my keyboard and sculpt my own hand at the same time. I'm not actually sculpting my own hand into this character directly, but I'm using it as a bit of a reference point. A lot of people underestimate themselves as reference points, and yet, you know, a lot of the artists I know spend, you know, at least the best ones that I know, you know, they spent a lot of time using themselves to help fill in the blanks on the reference that they had, right? You know, it's sure, some of your models will end up looking a little bit more like you than perhaps you had intended, but what's going on here? Oh, I've got a part of it hidden. There we go. I'll fix that. Oops. Whoa, hand's getting a little funky. But yeah, I forgot what I was talking about, so moving on. Doing some fingers. Oh yeah, modeling, sculpting myself into my characters and stuff, yeah. I knew a guy that did, you know, always had his models look a little bit like him. It's just kind of the way you learn. Well, the way I learned, anyway. When I went through the course at VFS, the first thing they gave us was a package of just different stuff that you'd need throughout the year, you know, usual pencils, schedule, that sort of stuff, right? But they also handed out an anatomy book and what's the other thing? The other thing was even more important. A mirror. And I actually went through the course as an animator, but took to modeling when I ended up enjoying modeling characters, modeling my own characters so much. And I had kind of done character stuff as a hobby more when I was first learning 3D as well. I'd modeled stuff, but you know, as a storyteller, I guess, or as someone interested in sort of creating my own short films and stories and stuff like that, right, as an animator, building a lot of that stuff was also kind of par for the course, right? And you know, it's nice to kind of be able to do a lot of that all at the same time, you know, and I just never stopped, so I ended up doing a lot of modeling, and been doing it ever since. It's just so much fun. By the way, I'm playing around with a couple of features here. I for those of you that are interested, right, I set up my interface here in a way that gives me access to a couple of hotkeys on the fly, this topological and this backface mask, and they serve a couple of purposes when I'm sculpting out stuff. So, for example, here with the backface mask, I'm able to, on the move brush, use this as a way to thicken volumes up, right? So I can kind of pull in one direction, and I don't have to worry about it grabbing the backside of the geometry at all. So as I kind of go to widen these shapes out, right, I can just kind of stretch this out and use this with the Dynamesh to kind of build out these shapes. And then on top of that, I use the topological button in the interface as well to activate and deactivate the topological feature. So that's why I don't have the move topological in my default brush lists here, my little hotkey brush list anyway. I will definitely try to remember to share the interface at some point soon here, but I use the topological mask to quickly activate the topological brush instead, right? Because it's just a button, right? A lot of the brushes that you work with in ZBrush are just built from, you know, well, they're all built from the same basic bases, right? So you've got, I think, a move base, a clay base, polish, or I think polish may even be a clay base brush. Standard brush and a couple other formats, right? And then, you know, you got the clipping brushes and things like that as well. But these brushes just have a whole bunch of different features set on them that give them their properties. So all you need to do is find what you need that you use a lot and just add that into your UI, right? And I just, at least I found it useful. I threw my topological button in there, and now I don't need the topological brush. I can just activate that feature on any brush on the fly, right? So just a little bit more efficient that way for me. I'm gonna hide this and clear this out. I do plan to share the interface. I know I said I would. I gotta save it off here, but maybe I'll do that at the end of the night here once I've wrapped this up. Hopefully I can remember anyway. Up that Dynamesh resolution a bit. Here's the, you know, one of the downsides that I find to working with the Dynamesh on areas like hands in particular is this fact that it kind of closes these volumes up as I work. So I often find myself having to go up the resolution in that Dynamesh as I kind of work in areas like the hands in particular. And I have on many occasions actually spent time just oh, is that not working? Oh, there we go. Okay. I have on occasion spent a lot of time just working with the arms separate or the hands separate on the geo, just so that I can increase the Dynamesh on that area without having to crank it up everywhere, right? And that's one of the things that I like about sort of working in chunks, working in pieces. From sort of a building or blocking perspective at least, right? Kind of build out your parts, and then you can kind of go from there, really. Just merge them all together afterwards. I think that'll work. Some of this out. I gotta clean up these lines. They should all kind of converge a little bit more as they wrap into the I guess these would be the extensors on the outside of the arm. So they all run all up this way through this section of the anatomy. You usually get sort of these, you know, on more muscular forms, you'll get these little muscles running up through this area away from this larger one, which kind of pulls down this way. But just want to bring those together a little bit more, and probably fill in some of that volume, but I don't need them to stand out quite that much. Just gotta fill out this padding on the side of the hand a little. Tweak some of these proportions. Now that I've thickened the fingers up, of course, everything looks a little weird. The pinky probably got the worst of it, I think, but let's check these shapes, right? Build this one out a little bit. Fix those shapes, those angles. Oops. Okay. Get the knuckles out here. I always like kind of getting this stepping effect through the knuckles as well. Just get them lifted up enough that you see sort of that step down into the finger almost. Bring that back up in the middle. Using that alt drag with the move brush again here. Let's see. Yeah. Compliment yourself again on the wonderful brush strokes that you did there. Yeah. Alright, Organifier. And of course this brush handed down to me from Ben Aird. Probably one of the craziest, strongest artists I've seen go through VFS anyway. If you haven't seen his work, it's Ben Aird with an E-R-D-T. Did some crazy stuff well before he came to VFS, but was a really great student to have as well. But he had more than enough experience, and he had this great brush, and I've been using it ever since. It's actually a lot like the Damien Standard, so, you know, it's nothing too crazy that you'd need to have, but I just like using it. Using this to just kind of carve in some of these shapes a little bit more and get just a bit of that structure laid in. Kind of get the depth in the middle of the hand right. This is a sort of an area that I find doesn't always like, it's kind of an easy, hard one to judge, right? Kind of getting the right sort of depth in the middle of the hand. Kind of go back and forth on it and smooth it out a lot. I think I'm starting to get happier about this though. Just kind of shape that a little, shape that a little. We get that little bump for the tendon to get dropped in here. Throw that down the middle of the wrists. Excuse me. And maybe even a little bit of the bone. There's like a bump here for a little bony mass there. And this looks a little weird to me, so I'm going to kind of clean up the width on the forearm here. I don't know, maybe it's the traditional, I guess not the traditional, the 3D, you know, the point pulling artist in me that likes to use the move brush to tweak things so much. But I do enjoy it. Don't like how these fingers sit sort of offset. I guess that kind of makes sense with the bends. When I built these, I did this all in Z-spheres, so the proportions should have been decent, but they don't quite read right. This finger feels a little on the long side to me. But that move topological is just causing me all sorts of problems. I wonder if the regular move topological is as awkward as my topological brush one. Let's see. Well, there's a delay there. That's kind of what I'm running into. Shorten it up a little bit. See how that goes. add a little bit more depth to the fingers here as well. Just bring this all forward. All this webbing is kind of in a weird spot. I tried to kind of blend it back together though, so hopefully that'll work. Oh, let's get the regular move brush back here. Don't need that topological for anything anymore here. That'll help. That'll work, yeah. At least for now. Alright, and maybe the Damien standard for the bottom of these fingers. Oops, and there's the rest of the character getting in my way. It might not be a bad idea for me to take a moment and polygroup this if I'm going to be working with this for a while. So, oh, I do have polygroups. Oh, yeah, from the Z-spheres, of course. I don't think I need